So Battlefront 2 is one of my most hyped games of... No, I'm not doing that. Not even I like Star Wars enough to put up with that. What else came out recently?
A short man from Texas, a man of the wild, thrown into combat where bodies lie piled. Cross the throne of Nazion, where no soldiers sleep and where hell 6 feet deep. The deathless weight, there's no debate. So charge and attack, go into hell and back.
I'm not gonna lie to anyone here, I was not expecting Call of Duty World War II to be any good. I was gonna buy Battlefront 2 until I saw what was going on with it. I'm not paying to unlock features that should come standard with the game. So, into GameStop I went and cancelled my Battlefront 2 pre-order, and I decided to walk out with a copy of the new Call of Duty game, even as skeptical as I was, as it was under high recommendation from a few friends. Firing the game up, I was hoping that this game had a decent story, as we hadn't had a somewhat decent one since Call of Duty Advanced pedophiles who now choose to live as gay men. I was decently surprised. Call of Duty World War II has my favorite Call of Duty campaign to date. No, I'm not kidding about this. Oh, and before I begin, it should be obvious, but I'm going to spoil this campaign like it's a brand new Thanksgiving turkey and you leave it out on the counter for a week. Spoiled. So let's talk about the campaign then. What was good? What wasn't good? Well, the game starts up on a boat where it introduces you to a few members of the protagonist, Daniels' squad. Styles, Yellow, and Zussman, who seem to have one defining character trait each. Styles is a nerd who carries around a camera, Yellow is a jerk but actually a nice guy, and Zussman is a Jew. The way the protagonist narrates the story is in the form of a letter being written to his brother Paul, who is back in Texas. I think this is an extremely interesting way to narrate the campaign, as it gives you a better understanding of the events unfolding, giving you a better insight to Daniels' character through him telling you himself what he's thinking and feeling as a result of different events. It's like he's directly addressing the player in a way. Going back to the 3 other characters we are introduced to, it's impossible to think that the writer's favorite was anyone other than Zussman. It's like Michael Condrey gave whoever wrote this game a bag of marijuana before asking him to do so, because all of the author's motivation to actually develop characters seems to have been forgotten after he finished Daniels, Zussman, and one other surprise I'll get to later.
Who's that Pokemon? It's Pikachu!
Judging by the highly progressive stance this game has taken, part of me believes this wouldn't be too far of a stretch.
What the fuck?
It's good that Daniels and Zussman have good character development though. This is because the game's major theme is showing the player what 2 brothers in arms will do for one another. The game tries to interject some other themes, but they ultimately fall short of even being considered a major theme in the game.
Hey, you know what I kill for? Decent grub.
You just had supper.
Hey, shit on a shingle doesn't count. Hey, how about barbecue, eh?
Never stood a chance.
I'm guessing no to the open casket.
Yeah, that's somebody's son.
Nah, it's a crowd.
Daniels is right. They're not all bad.
They did give us Kepler, Mozart.
All right, college.
Marlena Dietrich.
See, that's more like it.
Don't forget about their inventions. You got the printing press, electron microscope.
Frankfurters.
You guys are killing me.
The only criticism I have in representing this theme is that for the majority of the game, it's not Daniels and Zussman doing things for each other, but rather Zussman getting into trouble all the time and then getting bailed out by Daniels, who is essentially the guardian angel. The one exception I can remember is right at the beginning of the game. Daniels is caught off guard by a German soldier, and in the middle of melee combat, Zussman charges in and knocks him to the side, engaging in his own little battle with the soldier, where he eventually takes a knife to the gut, only for Daniels to return the favor and shoot the German with a 1911 that he had been reaching for earlier. The preceding scene is one of the best in the game, as you have to get Zussman back to a field medic before he bleeds out. Dragging him along slowly across the most dangerous part of the battlefield while fighting off enemies from all sides was truly a fantastic part of the campaign. Think of it like Activision trying to drag their dying franchise through the most dangerous games market, all while constantly being attacked by better multiplayer shooters from all sides. One other part is that Zussman is shown to be sort of an emotional support for Daniels, who is having a recurring dream about his brother being attacked by a wolf and him not being able to take the shot to save him. He eventually grabs a knife, stabs the wolf, and proceeds to get up and walk it off, leaving a young Daniels a mix of embarrassed and ashamed. Throughout the rest of the campaign, Zussman is shown to be as tough as nails, but also constantly getting helped out by Daniels. He almost takes on the annoying little brother role that you have to babysit. For some reason, though, I didn't actually feel bothered by that during my playthrough, and I didn't actually realize it until I was finished and writing the script. So, moving on. Some of the missions lack any kind of real plot or interesting features, as you know what you're doing, and you know it's important to do what you're doing to advance either of the plots that are happening, but it just doesn't live up to some of the greater missions.
Wait, there's 2 plots?
You would be right, individual who came out of nowhere. Wait a second, I didn't write you into the script. How did you get in here? Security? The game would be mind-numbingly dull if it was the Daniel Saves Zussman again show. So they decided to throw in another bit of plot. Remember that little surprise I mentioned earlier? Well, here he is. Merry birthday, everyone.
Sergeant Pearson.
Pearson is a character that serves as a superior to the character, and throughout part of the game also serves as an antagonist, which I do have to admit is an extremely interesting move. I mean, after all, I did not expect to play a game where the game's main identifiable antagonist is also your ally, and a member of your squad that will help you out in different situations. Nice thinking, story writer, you blazed bastard. Standing up as the third pillar in the Triforce of actual character development, Pearson's character arc begins at his introduction, where he smacks Zussman right in the stab wound.
Walk out the door, you see someone that you know and they ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
And to be truthfully honest, while I initially thought he was caring, I was then led to believe he went to boot camp at Fort Asshole. While Daniels' character arc can be summed up using the words "I'm scared, I'm envious, and I've overcome my fears and can now live with myself," Pearson's can be summed up via "I'm a hard ass, I'm still a hard ass, I'm a depressed asshole who might also be a lunatic, now you know why I'm an asshole, and now I'm less of an asshole than I was at the beginning." It's a character arc that seems about as appealing as lukewarm hot chocolate, but unlike lukewarm hot chocolate, somehow is still done well and doesn't leave you with a funny aftertaste.
Seriously, what the hell is this?
The one thing that I loved about Pearson's character arc is that while he's arguably the worst person to have a heart-to-heart conversation with, his facade breaks down at different moments and a little bit of the caring guy he is on the inside shines through. This also helps to set up his motivation for being so stubborn as something believable. What is that motivation? Well, I'll get to that in a wee bit, laddie. Well, after his character's initial introduction as a sergeant, and therefore second in command of your little group, a power struggle develops between Pearson and head honcho Turner, who share extremely conflicting ideas on what to do in different situations. Pearson being much more follow orders to a T, and Turner being the much more do what results in the best outcome for everyone involved. To set this idea up, the group runs across a group of German civilians, who I'm presuming are Jewish, because why else would you be hiding out in a basement during the Second World War, while on a mission to retake a base. Pearson suggests to just leave them there and continue on with the mission, while Turner, having sympathy for these people, helps them escape capture. When the squad follows Turner's orders, Pearson sends them off without escort and in direct opposition to Turner's orders, so they can continue the mission. It's also revealed here that Zussman is German-Jewish and is actually fluent in German, which immediately puts him on Pearson's suspicion list. This further escalates when the platoon splits up, Turner heading up one half and Pearson heading up the other. Pearson decides to push on instead of regrouping with Turner, who is waiting for him, and instead tries to take the heavily guarded objective by himself. This results in Turner rushing in to their aid, while a lot of soldiers have already died as a result of Pearson's orders, and eventually leads to the death of Turner, leaving Sunshine Boy as the #1 lion of the pride.
Brother, help me!
It's around this time that rumors spring up about Pearson being responsible for the deaths of all his men during a mission, and regarding the incident involving Turner, most of the cast believes it. This is where the conflict of Pearson versus almost everyone starts up, as he instates Daniels as his second and tells him to make them follow me. Sounds like another antagonist I found as of recent. This carries on for a while, as the squad constantly fears that Pearson will issue an order that will result in the deaths of everyone. Quick little side note, this is also where the character Howard is introduced. He's from an all-black regiment in the military, and the game acknowledges the racism a lot of people had back in the 40s with this little exchange.
I can't believe they let him fight.
Oh yeah, they even let us die.
Other than this, he sort of just feels like a token character.
Oi, 歌教員どうしたおい、歌教員何を笑ってるんだ大丈夫か、歌教員Oh my god! こんな苦しい時こそ冷静に対処すれば必ず勝機はつかめるはずや
勘違いしないでください、ジョースターさん。あそこの岩を見てください。人が隠れるほど大きくありませんか？
It is during one of these missions that Zussman is kidnapped, and as a result, the Triforce of character development evolves once again. Daniel disobeys a direct order from Pearson and steals a jeep to chase after the truck that snatched up Zussman.
Fuck out of here, nigga.
He fails, and as a result is honorably discharged for disobeying a direct order. Cut back to Zussman, who is still being tough as nails, and when asked in a prison camp who the Jews are, he drops his tags and immediately begins arguing with the German officer in his own language.
Have fun in Auschwitz, bitch.
During this time, there's also a cutscene where Daniels goes home to his wife in time for his child to be born, but this is revealed to all just be his own imagination. This part of the game also brings us Daniels' and Pearson's final character development, and also their most major one. The motivation for Pearson being so mad all the time is finally revealed, and it's understandable. Why he's such a hard ass about giving orders and directly sticking to them finally makes sense. Since Daniels wouldn't be able to live with himself if he returned home without Zussman, he decides to confront Pearson about staying in the military. He ruffles some jimmies by bringing up said motivation, and when Pearson says that Daniels doesn't know what sacrifice is, this happens.
No sacrifice too great!
You don't know anything about sacrifice!
How about this? Honorable discharge papers signed by Davis. My ticket home. I could have had everything. A hero's welcome, my girl in my arms, hell, even a Bronze Star. But I got one last mission.
You must be crazy.
Crazy ain't the half of it.
This forms a small mutual respect between the two of them. Pearson finally realizing that Daniels has got the guts it takes, and then being less of a terrible person moving forward. He also overcomes wallowing in his own self-pity and depression due to tragedies of the past. The conflict with Pearson is resolved, and the group moves forward together to take a bridge across the Rhine River in Germany so they can proceed to find Zussman. After taking the river, the group proceeds to come across an abandoned labor camp, specifically the one Zussman was in before it was evacuated. As the group wanders around, the true horrors of German labor camps are revealed to them. Styles taking pictures comes into play here for the first time in the campaign, as he takes pictures of what had happened so they can show the rest of the world. After some more searching and a failure to find Zussman, they proceed to charge into the forest in pursuit of the Nazis and their prisoners, among them Zussman. As he's charging, Daniels recalls the dreams shown near the beginning once more, this time revealing how it truly ends. The wolf kills Paul. He fell over dead in the snow after putting his hat back on. Daniels then finds a Nazi officer with a gun pointed straight at Zussman, and determined not to make the same mistake twice and to set his mind at ease, Daniels guns down the Nazi officer before he can pull the trigger on him. The rest of the squad shows up and carries Zussman to safety, and eventually back home, bringing the game's story to a conclusion. An epilogue takes place shortly after, showing what happens to all the soldiers after the conclusion of the Second World War. Alo and Styles return to their hometowns. Pearson stays in the military, as he believes it to be his home. Zussman is to stay in the hospital until he has recovered and then can go back to Chicago. Daniels goes back home to Texas, visits his brother's grave, and gives him the medal he earned, as it was Paul that helped him earn it in the first place. Then the credits roll, leaving myself sitting at my desk, extremely satisfied with what I had just played through. There's actually a little smaller story that takes place in the middle of the campaign that I didn't mention because it doesn't really tie into the main story about the squad versus Pearson. However, it's still good enough that I feel that it deserves its own section to be talked about. This is the section focusing on French Resistance member Rousseau. Rousseau? How do you say it? I don't know, I don't speak French. Rousseau gets her own little arc in the game, and to be truthfully honest, the mission where you play as her is probably the best one in the game. Making me reminiscent of the first FPS I played, 007 Nightfire, Rousseau must sneak into a Nazi base in Paris and do a case swap with a mole planted in the base. This part is particularly interesting because it's technically a stealth segment, and you need to know your part and how to get around right. You can check the details about the character you need to play at any time, other than when you actually need to answer questions about it. My criticisms of this section is that the Germans seem blissfully unaware of Rousseau sneaking about. There's an option to free a jailed man and kill a man attempting to rape a French woman, but no one notices or even gets suspicious of where this man may have gone, and why isn't he back yet? Also, why did he never walk out of that room? But these two other women did. Watching Rousseau take revenge for her husband and son in the section where her cover is blown is great, but she escapes through an open window, which she leaves open. When you look through another window, which is practically parallel to it, you can see a woman and the secretary trying to get a response out of the now dead general. Who knows you went in there? Second, when she re-enters, it's in a semi-populated area, and still no one noticed her. Also, the fact that it's literally the only path that she can take from the general's window. Oh, and did I mention it's raining out? Why did no one comment on how drenched she had to be? With that out of the way, I feel the need to mention there is a dogfighting segment, which unlike Infinite Warfare is fun and doesn't overstay its welcome. So that's all of my criticisms of the game's story out of the way. However, I'm not done with the campaign yet. There are still a few gameplay things I'd like to criticize here real quick before moving on. When it comes to the game, I played it on hardened, and it wasn't that bad difficulty-wise, with a few exceptions. The squad mechanics were an interesting addition to the game, and I feel it added a level of realism and depth that has not been in the other games in the series. It doesn't top the best squad game of all time, Republic Commando, but I appreciate them being there. The way in which they work is that after a certain amount of time in build-up, each of your teammates can provide you with different abilities, like tossing some ammo your way or a medkit to heal yourself with. My problem with this is that sometimes you develop a bit of a reliance on this, and as soon as you no longer have access to their abilities, it can be much harder to progress. The two most notable examples of this are Zussman and Turner. This is because Zussman helps you out by throwing you health packs, and Turner helps you out by throwing you ammo, similar to Elizabeth from BioShock Infinite.
Want some money?
That being said, these are the abilities that I used the most throughout the entire campaign. The other abilities didn't really have much of a use. I hardly ever needed Pearson to spot an enemy. I think I had Stylus throw me grenades once or twice, and I never used Aiello's ability to nuke places once. Maybe it would have helped, I just didn't think to. There were also a few times where I was caught in an infinite death loop because I would spawn and then just get shot to pieces because of having to go into an open area to complete a task where a checkpoint was. Because of this, I can't imagine what playing the game on Veteran would be like. I mean, I played this on Hardened. Also, when I first started the game, I ran into many technical issues, where the game would freeze up or just crash outright. This happened about 4 or 5 times in my first 2 hours, but after that they seemed to iron themselves out. Maybe it just kinda got fixed through a patch or something. Other than that, the gameplay is pretty solid, and I find very little to criticize when it comes to it. Call of Duty has really nailed down the formula over, I don't know, the past how many years they've been making games. I enjoyed 95% of the time I spent with the campaign, and the other 5% was those infinite death loops I just talked about. What do I talk about with multiplayer? I mean, it's practically the same thing, except it's boots on the ground again after the past 3 or so years. Well, I might as well explain how it works anyways. Multiplayer involves players in small-scale battles that never actually happen or mean anything and is just sort of a themed arena. Progression is tied to your performance in the game, at least for now. As you gain levels and ranks, you'll gain access to new base weapons and perks to help you customize your classes to your playstyle, and throughout matches may be awarded with a supply drop in which you can get different cosmetic items for your soldier and weapons. 98% of them being worthless grips you won't see because you do this thing to use a gun called holding it. 1% of those duplicates of the same grips, and the last 1% is one of the emotes that are constantly recycled under different names but are still the exact same thing. Shout out to the Act Man for bringing this to my attention. When it comes to gameplay, there are a variety of maps and modes, ranging from Team Deathmatch, Kill Confirmed, Domination, and my personal favorite, War. It's a shame though, because none of these maps feel super exciting. They all feel like, say, Stormfront or Whiteout from COD Ghosts, just maps you don't mind playing on. None of them reach levels of greatness like, say, Terminal from Modern Warfare 2 or Raid from Black Ops 2. I never felt excited to play on any of the maps. I never felt any emotion when I saw what map I was playing on really at all. Well, except for Gustav Cannon, which made me wonder where the nearest sharp object or firearm is, but we're talking about the rule, not the exception to it. There's also a new area called Headquarters, which is basically just the tower from Destiny. It's nice though, you can accept challenges here or do 1v1s. I've spent way too much time doing those. When it comes down to it though, Call of Duty World War II's multiplayer is kind of like Destiny 2 after you beat the main game. It's just mediocre. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just kinda meh. I've played about 26 hours of it too, so I think I've got some ground to stand on here. Unlike Destiny 2 though, Call of Duty World War II's multiplayer is a much better time investment than whatever the first excuse of a DLC was. Let's make a 2-hour fetch quest and call it an expansion. That's what everyone's doing these days. Let's sell it for $20. People will buy it. Yeah, that sounds like smart business decisions. If I was approached by someone and asked to play a Call of Duty multiplayer, I would play Black Ops 2 or Ghosts before World War II. I liked and enjoyed them both way more, but that could be in part due to fond memories creating a bias. However, I highly doubt that's the case. Call of Duty World War II's class creation is just so dang simple, and Ghosts was exactly the opposite of that, and even though Black Ops 2 was simple, it was at least making sense. Like, why can't I put suppressors on every gun? Why do I have to use the airborne class to do that? Why do I have to, like, disadvantage myself with weapons so I can get different perks from different classes or whatever these freaking division things are? Is garbage. Sledgehammer, never do this again. Why did you do this to us, Sledgehammer? I thought you were good. There. That's multiplayer in a nutshell. I'm done. I'm done talking about this. I'm done. Alright, welcome to the shortest section of the video. I haven't played a whole lot of zombies, however my thoughts on zombies are the same as my thoughts on multiplayer. It's stale. They keep doing it because it worked, and it's starting to not work for them anymore. Zombies isn't as good as it was in World at War, or Black Ops 2, and if you like zombies, just go play one of those games instead, because they're much, much better. In all honesty, I can't recommend this game for anything other than the campaign. Call of Duty multiplayer is better in past and cheaper games. A couple of those are bundled with what I consider a vastly better zombies experience as well. If you see it on sale for a price you're comfortable with, which for just a good campaign that's around 6 hours would probably be $20 to $30 depending on my cash flow at the time, then I'd recommend pulling the trigger. Other than that, everything else just seems like it was done better elsewhere, not to mention the SJW stuff that is present in this game for the sake of virtue signaling that isn't in past games. Call of Duty World War II is a game with a decent story and campaign, but the other two core components of the game feel uninspired and like no human made it. As Regs, greatest doggo on the planet, would say, like it was just made by a bunch of suits, and like I would say, that they thought up an idea for and printed out a new Call of Duty from a new Call of Duty machine. God, I wish I was good at making analogies like that. Other than that, everyone, my name is Fluidity, and I'll speak to you all very soon. If you liked this video, and only if you did, please hit the like button. It works wonders in letting me know how people actually think of these videos that I put out and spend a ton of time on. It would also be awesome if you pass this videos around, as I'd love to come into contact with more and more people who might like my videos. Also, feel free to follow me on Twitter, and I've got a Gab I forgot about too, so don't forget to follow me there if you're interested. Well, that's enough e-begging for me. I'm turning too much into a shill about this sort of thing. Thanks everyone, I'll see you in the next video.